Today I'm going to show you how to make my go-to pumpkin bread recipe. This one is a family favorite. Hey y'all, welcome to Robin on the Farm. Today I'm sharing with you my very favorite pumpkin bread recipe. This is the best pumpkin bread in the world. I've been making this for more than 20 years. I love it. It's my go-to. I give it as gifts. My family loves it. It's fantastic. It's moist, it's delicious, it's so good. So let's just get started on the recipe. It's really easy to make. Uses really basic ingredients. We're gonna start with 3 eggs. 3 large eggs, just put them right into your bowl. Now I'm gonna use my mixer, but this is so simple. You can just mix it up in a big bowl with a whisk or rubber spatula. You don't even have to get out your mixer for this. It's so easy. We're just gonna dump everything in the bowl and mix it up all at one time. I love recipes like this. Next, we want our oil. We're gonna use 3/4 cup of oil. This is my light olive oil. You can use coconut oil. You can use anything you want. You could use 3/4 cup of melted butter if you want. That would be about 1.5 sticks. But the oil is gonna give you a moister bread. So I'm gonna just suggest that you stick with oil for this recipe. So 3/4 cup of oil right on into your bowl. Next, we want 1/2 cup of water. Just throw that right on in there too, 1/2 cup of water. And now we want our pumpkin. My very favorite ingredient is our pumpkin. This is gonna call for 1 can of pumpkin, 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin. This isn't your pumpkin pie filling, not the kind of thing that you would use if you're gonna make a really simple pumpkin pie, that pumpkin pie filling. No, this is the 100% pure pumpkin puree. So make sure you get the right one. This one. You can get the off-brand. The off-brand is just as good and it's cheaper. I have so many of these in my food storage. I got a really good deal on them. So I have a bunch of cans of these to be using up. Might be why I'm sharing so many pumpkin recipes right now. Plus, I just really like them. Okay, so 1 can of pumpkin puree. Just put that right on into your bowl with everything else. And those are all of our wet ingredients. Now I'm just gonna put our dry ingredients right on top. We're gonna use 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. So 1 3/4 cups. Now this recipe lends itself really well to using fresh milled flour too, because it's such a moist and kind of a dense quick bread. You can use fresh milled flour, no problem. So 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, that's what I'm going with. Next we want our sugar. I'm gonna use 2 cups of sugar, but you can definitely get away with maybe 1.5 cups. I've made it that way too, it's good. I just like the sweetness, so I'm gonna use 2 cups. I'm not gonna eat the whole loaf by myself, so it's okay. But you can definitely reduce the sugar. 1.5 cups would be fine. Next, we want some baking soda. This is a quick bread. There's no yeast, so we have to have some kind of leavening agent to help it rise. So we're gonna use 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Just put that right on in there on top of your flour and your sugar. 1.5 teaspoons. Next we want our cinnamon. Our cinnamon is just so good at this time of year. I've been using a ton of cinnamon. So we want 1 teaspoon of cinnamon right on top of our other ingredients. Next you're gonna want a teaspoon of nutmeg or pumpkin pie spice. I'm gonna use pumpkin pie spice because I just love it. I think it smells so good. So 1 teaspoon, just put it right on into your bowl. Now, I'm kind of afraid to admit this to you, but this was my little pumpkin pie spice. I was about out and I needed to use it for a recipe the other day and I forgot to buy more when I was at the store. And so I was out and I needed it and I remembered that I had some old spices from my mother-in-law in the freezer. My mother-in-law stores her spices in the freezer, gets them out right in time to use them, and puts them right back in the freezer. So this is some really old pumpkin pie spice from 1991. And it's been in the freezer. I got it out, I smelled it, and truthfully, this smells better than my new pumpkin pie spice. It's stronger. I've always heard that you can store them in the freezer and they're gonna last forever, but they might get a little less potent. Not this stuff. This stuff smells really good. So I've been doing a lot of baking this season with this old pumpkin pie spice, and it's been totally fine. It's been great. I actually have another one of these from her from 1992, but I've been using this stuff from 1991. It's working great. So for real, if you store your spices in the freezer, they're gonna last forever. Just like you always hear, they really will. And our next ingredient is salt. I'm gonna use this North American Ancient Fine Sea Salt. You can use white table salt, but you're gonna want 1 teaspoon of salt. The neat thing to me about this salt is that we have horses and cattle that we give mineral blocks to, salt licks, and it took me a while to put two and two together, but the brand that we use is Redmond salt, and it's the same. It's the same color. They just have a big, huge piece of salt that they lick, and ours is ground up like this. If it's good for the horses and the cows, I guess it's good for us. So I'm gonna use 1 teaspoon of this salt. I'm gonna put it right on into my bowl. And those are all of the ingredients for this fantastic world's best pumpkin bread. Now I'm just gonna put it into my mixer. You don't have to worry about creaming your sugar and your eggs together or anything like that. We're just gonna put it all in there and let it mix at the same time. So I'm gonna turn this on to speed 2 and let it just mix around just for a minute. This is a great little mixer. I love this thing. It's so quiet, it's so pretty. I just love this. It's so fun to make pumpkin bread in an orange KitchenAid mixer. So I'm just gonna let that go for a second, and I'm gonna grab my loaf pans. This recipe makes 2 loaves of bread. You can divide it in half if you only wanna make 1, but it freezes beautifully. And once you make it, you're gonna wanna give away one of these loaves to your neighbor or to your mom or to your sister or somebody. Somebody's gonna want this bread. It is so good. It makes really great gifts. So I'm gonna use my cast iron loaf pans. These are my go-to loaf pans. I love baking and cooking and everything in cast iron. It doesn't have any of those coatings or anything that can get into your food. So I love cast iron and I totally recommend it to everyone. Any kind of loaf pan that you can use glass or tin or whatever. You're gonna wanna oil these up really, really well so that your bread doesn't get stuck in them when you're trying to get them out. It would be so sad to make this beautiful loaf of bread and then have it break apart on you when you're trying to get it out. So pour some oil in there, rub it around with a brush or a paper towel, and your bread is just gonna slide right out. You're not gonna have any problems. Okay, this has gone long enough. I'm using my paddle attachment. You could definitely use your whisk, just not the dough hook. So you can use this or the whisk. Both work perfectly fine for this recipe. Okay. And there it is. Doesn't that look nice? I love the orange color. I love pumpkin. I love all the vitamin A it provides for us. Oh, good stuff. So this makes 2 loaves. I'm just gonna divide it half and half in each loaf pan. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. It's okay if one's a little bit bigger than the other. Now that I have this pumpkin bread batter divided between my 2 loaf pans, I'm gonna go ahead and throw these in the oven. I'm gonna let them bake for 50 minutes at 350 degrees. It could take a little bit longer. I'm gonna do the toothpick test and make sure that they're totally baked inside. But you definitely don't wanna overbake these. These are so moist and delicious. About 50 minutes should do it. Here's the pumpkin pie spice from 1991. It's a really cool vintage container too. But like I said, it smells really good and it is totally fine to use. So I used it in these. Here's my family favorite pumpkin bread fresh out of the oven. I just got them out. They baked for about 52 minutes and they look great. Now I'm gonna let them cool for about 10 or 15 minutes before I turn them out of the bread loaf pans. That'll help them to firm up a little bit and help reduce the chance of them breaking. If you struggle like I do getting your quick breads out of the baking pan, no matter how much you oil them up, these are awesome. I just started using them. They came after I made my pumpkin bread, but I have made several loaves of quick bread with these now, and they make getting your bread out of the loaf pan so much easier. It's kind of like a big cupcake liner. I'll put the link down below so you can find them. All right, here's our beautiful loaf of pumpkin bread. It's cooled off a little bit. I'd let it cool off about 15 minutes, and then I got it out of the pan. I just used a knife and kind of went around the edges and got it out nice and slow, and it came out great. So definitely oil up whatever kind of pan you're using. So now I'm just gonna cut into it. Let's take a look at this bread. I should let it cool a little bit more. It would be less crumbly if I let it cool a little bit more, but I'm ready to look at this. Oh, look at that. That looks great. That looks so good. It is so moist. That's the thing that I love most about this pumpkin bread. It's moist, it's delicious, it has a lot of pumpkin flavor. There it is. Beautiful little slice of pumpkin bread. So good. I'm gonna leave the recipe for this pumpkin bread down in the description. There'll be a link that you can click on and you can print it or share it. If you make this pumpkin bread, would you please leave a comment and let me know what you thought of it? I will see you next time on Robin on the Farm.
Robin's in the kitchen, dough beneath her hands, wheat from the fields and eggs from her land. Sunlight through the window, a warm golden glow. She's working hard to make that dough.